What up, party people? What up, boys and girls? Chef here. New Zealand Murder History Podcast. Check this one out. I got a pretty messed up story for you guys today. It's awful. It's about, it's about a few people, really. Some of these people aren't named. They have name suppression, and I'm not even sure if they were charged or not. So we won't discuss them. But they were in the car with this bloke, Falcon Samuels. Now, Samuel's got 17 years non-parole for shooting 40-year-old Paul Te Hiko. Of course, he says he didn't do it. I don't know, maybe he didn't. I think he probably did, but, I wasn't there. But anyway, that's Falcon Samuels. That's 30 when he's in court, but he was 28 when this all took place. Here's Paul Te Hiko. He was a Maori fella, a builder. He was a gang member. You know, he might have had a few problems with the law here and there, but he didn't deserve to get gunned down like that, that's for sure. I mean, he was building a new subdivision, trying to build houses for people to live in, you know. He was doing his best. It's awful sad, you know. He had one child. I believe it was a son. I'd have to go back and read that to be sure, but I'm fairly sure he had a son. And he had a family. His dad was also a builder. Anyway, let's kick it. Alrighty. So I got a scripted podcast for you guys today. I hope you like it. This guy, Paul Te Hiko, he got killed living in a shipping container just outside the shipping container. He walked down the stairs holding an axe to confront Falcon Samuels, and he got shot down. Now, I just want to clarify two things. On the property that he was living on, which was also where he was working as a builder, there was a dojo. Now, this was an actual dojo. His dad was into martial arts. Well, his dad is into martial arts, more accurately. But yeah, he was living in a shipping container. There was a martial arts dojo and a bunch of other buildings, and they were building a subdivision in Wainuiomata, Wellington. And I think he was living in the shipping container to be closer to work, because Wainuiomata is actually quite far out from Wellington Central. Anyway, let's kick it. This episode of New Zealand Murder History Podcast isn't suitable for children. Kids, click off. We will discuss murder, gun violence, drug dealing, and gangs. Anyone suffering from PTSD or just not feeling the best, also click off and seek support from your doctor, or call one of the many 0800 numbers available. My show is just for educational purposes and not to cause offense to the victim, you know, or the killers, or anybody really. And one more thing before we do this show. I mean, I don't want anyone to say anything mean about Paul Te Hiko. I mean, so what? If he was using a bit of pee, it's his life. I mean, did you always make the right choices? Or did you? And also, I'm no gang expert. I only have the same access to the media, newspapers, 1 and 3 News, and the internet as Joe Public does. So if there is any misinformation, please politely correct me in the comment section. Minor details I might let slide, but, you know, if there's some big-time misinformation, I'll take it down, because spreading misinformation is not the aim of this YouTube channel. I gotta say, though, there just isn't much information online about this murder. The info I did find, though, it comes from NZ Herald article, Man on Trial for Murder of Wainuiomata Man Paul Te Hiko, written on the 19th of August 2019, and that one's available on nzherald.co.nz. We've also got Radio New Zealand article, Wainuiomata man Paul Te Hiko killed in drug theft gone wrong. Crown, so that's the name of the article, but also that's what the Crown says. Written on the 19th of August 2019, and you can find that one on www.rnz.co.nz. Another NZ Herald one. Man accused of murdering Paul Te Hiko in Wainuiomata denies charge. Written on September the 11th, 2018. Available on www.nzherald.co.nz. I also use the New Zealand Police website, man charged with murder for death of Paul Te Hiko. Written on the 24th of August, 2018. Available on www.police.govt.nz. Now first let's set the scene a bit. Wellington City and New Zealand in general is usually considered safe. This is untrue though. Other places around the globe, well, they may be more dangerous, but you know, Wellington's not that safe. Maybe the capital city, but Auckland's the shooting capital these days. However, Wellington City still has enough shootings and murders, etc. The drug scene's gotten heavy. Yeah, now I'm gonna read this article word for word for you guys because I want to set the scene a bit. So this article I'm reading, stuff.co.nz, Falcon Samuel's guilty of the shooting killing of Paul Te Hiko, written on the 4th of September 2019. Falcon Samuels has been found guilty of shooting Paul Te Hiko. It started out as a simple enough crime to rip off a stash of drugs Paul Te Hiko was supposed to have. It ended with Falcon Samuels standing over Te Hiko as he died, shot in the stomach. I think it was the stomach and lower chest area, but anyway, that's what this article says. On Wednesday, he was found guilty of murdering him. Paul Te Hiko was supposed to have drugs, a stash apparently at a construction site of the new subdivision in Wainuiomata he was working at. So a plan was hatched by 3 men to break in on March the 7th, 2018 with a crowbar and take his stash. They did not think he would be there. Instead, Te Hiko was sitting on the couch inside a relocatable building called the Dojo, minding his own business. They had no idea he was on community detention and had to be there from 7 p.m. onwards. He had been out, got some food and visited his parents, the last time they would see him alive. By 11 p.m. he was dead, found by a friend who discovered his body lying at the bottom of the steps leading to the dojo. Samuels had gone prepared. Not only had he taken a crowbar, but in a bag he had a sawed-off single-shot shotgun. And he was prepared to do whatever it took. He said as much to the 2 men who had gone with him. One man, who gave evidence at Samuel's trial, was brought in to take Samuels through the property to where the dojo was. The third man, the one with the plan, a few days before had organised a driver and others to take part, but it was Samuels who was all for it. As the 3 got close to the building, the lights were on. This made them pause. Samuels peered through the window and described the man sitting on the couch. It was Te Hiko. When he pulled out the gun, the others suddenly didn't want anything more to do with it, but Samuel said he was up for anything, like a home invasion. The 2 men left, heading to the back of the property where they intended to meet a car. Only a few minutes later, as the trail wound close to the dojo, they heard arguing and then a single gunshot. So I guess the trail refers to the path they were on. Anyway, it was part of a series of crimes Samuel was involved in around the time of the shooting. On March the 4th, 3 days before the shooting, Samuels and others had robbed the Galway Street Dairy in Waterloo Lower Hutt. Samuels had a gun, pulled his hoodie up and ran into the store. He was later convicted of assault with intent to rob. 6 days later, he was in a car that drove away from a service station after pumping petrol. They broke into a car at the hospital and took a Prada bag. So I think this whole crime spree refers to the hut. Wainuiomata is part of the hut, although it is over the hills. It's sort of its own thing as well, but I think it comes under Hutt District Council. Anyway, whatever. He ended up in the police cells in Gisborne, so that's where they caught up with him, up in the Hawke's Bay. He was seen to have a contraband item and had to be pepper sprayed. When he was offered a shower, he instead ran off down a corridor and smashed a phone. Later, an officer doing the dinner rounds had a hot tea thrown on him by Samuels. He was charged with willful damage, assault, theft, and breach of bail and sentenced to 15 months jail, with the sentencing judge pointing out his 17 pages of previous convictions. That sentence was later reduced to a year on appeal. Then he was charged with murder. So they caught up with him for this crime spree in the Hawke's Bay. Then he gets charged with murder. Then he gets sent back to Wellington, to the hut, but that's just out of Wellington. Anyway, his DNA was found on the jacket worn by Te Hiko. He had patted Te Hiko down as he watched him die. His lawyer, Nicola Wright, had told the jury it was possible he was actually trying to help Te Hiko after one of the others shot him. She said the Crown's case came from liars and a jailhouse snitch. Samuels has been remanded in custody until October for sentencing. So that's the end of the article. But yeah, so yeah, one blast from a sawed-off shotgun was all it took, you know. All it took to kill the 40-year-old member of Big Punch. But the question I want to know the answer to is, why did Falcon Samuels murder Paul Te Hiko? I mean, the Crown says in the 2019 court case that it was all just a robbery gone wrong. Well, I mean, I'm not really so sure about that, to be honest. Sounds more like a hit to me. I mean, okay, so Falcon Samuels' DNA was found on Paul Te Hiko's jacket, indicating he rifled through his jacket looking for, pee and cash. Apparently there was cash in his jacket, but that wasn't taken. But if you ask me, that's neither really here nor there, because, if you did just shoot someone who happened to be a P connection, well, you may as well rob them too. I'm not actually 100% sure that Paul was a P connection. He may have just been a smoker, but I really don't know. You see, Falcon Samuels is a member of the Mads gang. And Mads gang and Big Punch, well, they're usually allies, so as far as I know. And here in New Zealand, gang members, they don't usually kill their allies because there's much more to lose than to gain. They either go after their enemies or sometimes kill their own. So here you've got a 28-year-old Mad in a car with 3 ruffians, possibly 3 plus the driver. It's actually quite hard to piece this together from the information available, but I think there was 3 of them. Anyway, the driver of the car is a full gang member. I assume it's also Mad's gang, but may not be. Anyway, they show up with a sawed-off shotgun, no less. And there's just too much overkill going on. I mean, are they really just so smoked out on P that they think this is a good idea? Because gangster code dictates that this guy Falcon, he must get dealt with within the prison system. And that goes for even if he didn't shoot Paul Te Hiko, even if it's just went to rob him. I mean, or else it's just going to be open season on Big Punch. I mean, they can't afford to look soft now. Is Falcon Samuel such a smoked out tough guy that he just doesn't care? Nah, this was personal. Either that or a contract murder. And that's why another member's driving the car to make sure the job gets done. Of course, it could be a contract from someone higher up the ladder who has personal problems with Paul Te Hiko. Who, what, when, why, how, I don't know. But yeah, that stuff.co.nz article I read before, it sure makes Falcon Samuels look like a loose cannon. It's hard to say for sure, though. I mean, stuff.co.nz, they aren't always as factual as one might hope, so... Anyway, let's take a look at the 28-year-old career criminal, who the Crown says is handy with his sword off. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not exactly positive role model of the year with his 102 convictions to his name. But before all this drama unfolded, he had only clocked up one conviction for violence, and that was for assault. So can a bloke really go from a bunch of thefts and driving convictions, plus one assault, to a shotgun murder? Well, he may have done. Plenty of stuff in his past. I mean, he may have done plenty of stuff in the past and just gotten away with it, and we don't know about it, you know? Yeah, so his dad, he would take him along to burgle houses when Falcon was only 8. Yeah, I guess 8-year-olds are good at jumping through windows without being too loud and making a lot of noise. Then he's smoking marijuana, and by the time he's 11, he's put into the foster care system. At age 18, he's given a MADS patch, and that's pretty young. Thing is, I mean, he may not have a lot of violence convictions, but I don't think the Mads gang are just giving patches out to any Tom, Dick, and Harry. I mean, they have a rep for being pretty nasty. They're not particularly organised for organised crime, but yeah, and they're not shy to smash women over too. I'm not suggesting that Falcon Samuels is into bashing women, but yeah, Mads have a reputation for all sorts of stuff like that. So who knows? I mean, now I'm going to quote the New Zealand Police website I referenced before because it backs up my theory that this was a hit. We have been in touch with Paul's family to inform them of the arrest. While they are grateful to know that somebody has been arrested, they remain devastated, and they want to know why Paul was targeted. While it is a significant milestone to now have someone before the court, we believe Mr. Te Hiko was targeted by his attackers. We believe others were involved, and our team of investigators and experts will continue to focus on establishing exactly what happened. That was Detective Senior Sergeant Mike Sears I was quoting, word for word, from the NZ Police article, Man Charged with Murder for Death of Paul Te Hiko, on www.police.govt.nz, written on August the 24th, 2018. Whenever I quote anyone on my show, it's always word for word. Anyway, let's unpack that. So now that's what a Detective Senior Sergeant said on the 24th of August 2018, but by the time it goes through the courts in 2019, the Crown Prosecutor is saying it's all just a robbery gone wrong. For me, this could mean three things. Number one, the police done a solid investigation and it wasn't a hit. It was in fact just a robbery. Number two, it was a hit, but the Crown decided that they were lacking enough evidence to convince a jury of so. So the tough decision was made just to paint the motive out. 3 blokes with a sawed-off shotgun. It's just a robbery for P. This doesn't quite ring true though, because Paul Te Hiko, he had money and cigarettes in his pockets. Now, assuming Falcon Samuels doesn't smoke cigarettes, and that he is the violent shotgun-wielding P freak the Crown says he is, well, why didn't he take the money then? Surely he could have used it to buy more P. I don't know how much money was supposed to be in Paul Te Hiko's jacket, but with a wound from a shotgun, you know, it's possible that the money had blood on it. Actual blood money. In which case Falcon Samuels may have left it because he knew it could link him to the crime scene, you know. It's also possible his lawyer is full of shit, and this bloke only had like $1.50 on him or something. I mean, I just don't trust defense lawyers or anyone involved in the courts at all, and neither should you. Number 3, Falcon Samuels didn't shoot Paul Te Hiko and is now serving 17 years non-parole life sentence for a crime he didn't do. I actually doubt this is the case, but, let's not just rule it out because the courts did. I mean, but if it was a robbery, then a sawed-off shotgun is the last word in violence. I mean, I know if I was in that position, I would have handed over the bag without a second thought. Also, surely somebody who knows martial arts, a member of Big Punch no less, would know that the axe that he was holding wouldn't stand up to a sawed-off. So yeah, Paul Te Hiko, he came down the back steps of his house holding an axe. Samuel's brandished shotgun. Bang! That's what happened. Surely he would have just given him the bag. Anyway, perhaps Paul Te Hiko thought it couldn't possibly be loaded. And this bloke, Samuels, he's all bluff. I mean, I can only guess what Paul was thinking, but... Anyway, I just want to point something out while I remember. No one break name suppression orders and name the other people in the car. I don't know why all the name suppression in this case, but if you want to break court orders, you start your own damn YouTube channel. Leave me out of it. There's one more thing that makes this murder look like a hit and not a robbery. Paul Te Hiko, well, he was on the 7 p.m. curfew. Another reason he was living in the shipping container, perhaps. In the articles I'm reading, it says Falcon Samuels and the other 2 unnamed accomplices didn't know Paul Te Hiko was home. But what if they did? Like if the original plan was to cat burgle the shipping container, then why have they got a shotgun? But, perhaps Falcon Samuels is just so knee-deep in crime that he just cruises around with a sawed-off shotgun. I mean, well, anyway, when all was said and done, the Wellington courts gave Falcon Samuels 17 years non-parole for that one. And I'm not certain what the other 2 were charged with, whether they were even charged or not. Like I said before, the facts in this case are few and far between. The end. Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, it's just so much unknown, Have a good one, everybody. All the best.